So, hi guys. My name is Olivia, if you don't know me already. My paper was about the game of cycles, and then how you can expand what was already talked about in that article to work with teams and work with more than 2 players. So, first we'll just talk about what is the game of cycles, so the board and some of the rules. So, at the bottom it has the original game and articles by Ryan Alvarado, and it's entitled The Game of Cycles. So, basically, the game of cycles is kind of like a mix between like dots and boxes. There's another game called Coal and Snort, which I've never heard of, but apparently it's very similar to this. So it starts with a board. I am going to talk about this board right now, just because this is what my whole presentation is based on, is this board, which is called the K4 board, because there's 4 vertices here. And so what happens in the game is that traditionally in the original article, 2 people will take turns drawing arrows on these lines. So if this is my board, and player 1 goes here, player 2 goes here, whatever it is, you go on until you create what is called a cycle cell, which is when all arrows are pointing around in a shape. So this one, it will be all triangles. It will either be the big triangle or one of the little triangles. So if I went here, that would give me a winning move because it goes like that. But this game is very interesting because you can play it on basically any board that you can construct that is a closed shape. So like this one, it's closed, it's fine. That one over there is S4, that one's okay too. There's a bunch of different ones that you can do. So that makes it really interesting to think about it. So here are some of the definitions or like terms that are used in this presentation and in my research and everything. So I'm just gonna keep erasing it just because I think it's nice to have a visual of what these things look like. So the first one, sink and source, those are really important in this game. So if you have 2 arrows that are already pointing towards a vertex, and then you only have this one left, not all of your arrows can be pointing into here. If that was the only move I could make, I would be out, the game would be over, the other person would win. Similar thing with the source, if all of my arrows were pointing out of this vertex, I would not be able to go here, or else that would be a losing move for me. A death move is when you set it up so another player could win. So if someone goes here, another player goes here, that would be a death move because I could just go right here and win the whole game. There's a couple other things, but I won't go over it just because there is a lot to get through, but all very interesting things. So one of the previously proven strategies for the original Game of Cycles is based on Zermelo's theorem, which basically says that if you're playing with 2 people, there is a way to force, like one of the players will be able to win. Basically, that's what it's saying. But the problem is, when I looked at my extension, which is the 3 players, there is no real way that I have proven, at least. There may be a way, but there's not one that I have proven that shows you how to do it when there's more than 2 players. That's when it gets really complicated because this theory does not hold anymore. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So just looking at strategies involved with more than 2 players. So I'm looking specifically at 3 players. And for this presentation, player 1 and player 2 are working together to try to beat player 3. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So the first thing, I have 3 copies of the K4 board, and then I just have all the 3 different moves that a player could make. So for my presentation, I color coordinated everything, so player 1 is always going to be that dark green there. So if you see any dark green triangles, that is player 1. So player 1 can either go from B to A to B, or D to B without loss of generality. A to B is the same as A to C, or A to D. They're all the same because of symmetry. And then the reason that I don't need one going like this from B to D is just because you can flip it, it's symmetrical, so you only need the 3 of them. And I did check to make sure, and B to D is the exact same results as the D to B. So I'm going to be looking into each of these. So if we look first, going off of the first board, the B to A one. So what I've done here is, so here's our player 1's move, right? So here is me talking about if player 1 makes this move, here are the moves that player 2 cannot make because it would be a death move causing player 3 to win. And then other than these ones, here are all the possible options that player 2 could do, which is marked in pink, as you see all of them. And then on each of those is all the moves that player 3 can make on these boards. So I'm not going to go into each one specifically, all the different things that they can do, just because, again, lack of time. So, because there is a lot. So here's each of those expanded. So if you see, like, we have like beta, epsilon, all of those have their own section here. So what I found is through every single one, every single move, every single possibility, there is the player 1 and 2, their team will always win. So when it is time for player 1 to make another move, which is the top row here and then this row here, they don't usually want to make a death move, but if they make a death move here, that means that player 2 would win because it's setting player 2 up for a death move. So that's a good thing, so you want to do these. The don't moves are just the great name I came up with for things you should not do. So the S-S are all synchronous resources, which remember are like these ones over here. Those are the illegal moves that you can't do. And then the ones that are starred with the little arrows are things that you could do, but it's not going to force a win on that turn. So then if we were looking at this one, B to C would not cause a win for the team, but so that would move over to player 2's turn, and player 2 cannot make any moves that are legal. They can only make sync or source moves, which means that player 1 would win because of player 2's inability to make a move, causing a win for the team anyway. So that's basically what this whole slide is just proving, is that every single move you make for every opportunity, the team will win. And then if we look at the A to B board, it's the same sort of thing. So again, I listed the death moves that player 2 should not make because it will cause player 3 to win, which is what we do not want for the team. And then it expands into each of those. And then you'll see with with the first board and then this board, they are very similar. It's all the exact same results for this one, because if you remember, this is talking about this line here, and it's this way and this way, which is a really interesting thing because it's on the same line, so they have the same results. Sorry. So if we look at these all again, there is no move for any of them to make to basically lose. Even if they are not the smartest players, if they make it through player 1 making a good move the first time, they will always win. There is no way for them to lose, I guess they could screw it up, but not really. So every move that they make, there is a way for the team to win, and that's what this is all proving. And then this is where it gets more complex. So this is the D to B board, so that one on the side. So here are all the death moves. And this one only has 3 possibilities, which if you remember from the last 2, they all had 6. So this is automatically different. So what I have here, what I want you to notice that I haven't pointed out before, just because the other ones were a little bit simpler. But on these, if you look, there is always a line in here that is a line that is either a sync or source one way and a death move the other. So if we look here, that line is DA. It's really blurry because I know it's a small picture blown up, but these are little X's through this line, A to D like this all the way around, and then this one is B to C, and all of them are crossed off on this, like the N board here. Same thing for Q, it's a different line, but they all have the same one that is a sync or source this way or a death move this way. And that's one of those lines for each of them, which is a really important thing when it comes to if player 1 was to make this move, what your next move, a smart next move would be. So looking at this, so L and Q check out. That is very similar to what we were talking about before. With the other lines, there is no way for the team not to win. But if they were to do a move that brings us to the N board, that is where things get complicated. So these moves both are going to cause a win for the team. But if player 2 makes these moves, these ones, that will cause player 3 to win. So it says here player 3 wins, player 3 wins, player 3 wins. And so what I have found is that the reason this is actually going back to those initial lines that I had crossed off. So if you look, that line BC is X'd out on the N board. And BC is the move for 2 out of the 3 of them as to why it won't work. So here, this is B to C, is going to cause player 3 to win. Here is C to B is going to cause player 3 to win. Now, the thing that I was surprised about was the AD, because this one is really not related to anything. There is no reason as to why this one doesn't work as compared to everything else. So that one would be a really interesting thing to expand on if I were to study this topic further, just because I did not find a relation as to why that one doesn't work, and there's no relation to any previous like death moves, sync or sources, anything like that. So if the player 1 was to make this move, player 2 would have to be conscious, player 1 would have to be conscious on their second turn, not to take the A to D, B to C, or C to B, or C to D. I think that's supposed to be B. So my conclusion, so just a little bit wrap up so you remember all the boards. So the A to B board and B to A board, those are both proven. If someone makes those two moves, they will win for the team. The D to B board cannot be set 100% sound about that. You can avoid the move in that one circumstance with the N. You can avoid the one move on this line, but if that is not something that is prior knowledge, that is not something that is easy to prevent in the future. And then really quickly just talking about future possibilities if someone was to study this again, or if I was to learn more about it. I would want to talk about theories with more than just 3 players. So theories with N players instead, 4, 5, whatever, how many. Team games on different boards, just because of how many possibilities there was for each one. It was really difficult to try to do it on any other boards. I did try to do it on the S4 board, which was at the very beginning, and it was very complicated. And then also switching the order of players in the team. So instead of player 1 and 2 working together, if player 2 and 3 work together, if player 1 and 3 work together, how is that going to affect the strategies? Do they all work out the same? How would that work with more than 3 people? And then here is my references to the original article, and that's the end. Do we have any questions? Okay, great.